All right, welcome to Tuesday Tips, episode 32. If you're watching this on YouTube, I live streamed this on twitch.tv/hazecubing. You should go ahead and follow that link in the description. I live stream every Tuesday at 6 p.m. After the tip ends, I'll be giving out some helpful advice too and Q&A. I also do live streams kind of randomly throughout the week. So this tip is going to be about hardware for 5x5, 6x6, and 7x7, although it pretty much can apply, I guess, more really just hardware in general and dealing with hardware. So hardware in recent years has become pretty good. Like back in the day, when I started cubing, there was only one if you wanted a big cube, there was one option. You bought a V cube. And if you wanted a 6x6, there was one option. You got a V cube 6, and then you spent 20 hours modding it. I don't even want to do too many turns on this thing because it might break. You spent like 20 hours modding it to make, like, this is one of the best V cube 6s in the world, and it sucks. It's like absolutely terrible. Hardware nowadays is really nice and very different. Like for 3i3s, there's pretty much, I think, four. There's Valk Power, GTS2M, and then there's the GAN Air SM that are all pretty much considered to be good cubes, and any good you can get great times at any, and they're pretty preference based. Nowadays, for big cubes, it's still there's much more limited options, but I think it's important that people kind of know how to pick and set up their hardware. Picking hardware is kind of the easy part, and setting up hardware I think is the real actual trickiness in terms of like getting a good cube. So I'm going to go quickly over picking hardware. The most important thing is to pick a cube that fits your turning style. So for me personally, my turning style is very fast. If you've ever watched any of my videos versus like Felix, for instance, we have very different turning styles. Felix is more slow and controlled, more efficient, while I kind of turn a little more aggressively and on average a lot faster. This neither one's necessarily good or bad. They all have their pros and cons, but this is kind of just what I'm used to. Also, partially due to me growing up and starting out on bad cubes, I'm really good at dealing with more looser cubes or cubes that are naturally less stable. I can control a loose cube just fine, which means that if a cube is loose and super fast, that's pretty good for me because while another cuber might not be able to handle it well enough to use its fast speed, usually that's something that I can deal with. So for me personally, that's why I've kind of been led to picking most of the Yushin products because they're kind of in the balance of they have more speed versus stability, but that's like my personal preference. The real key in picking hardware is you have to pick what is going to work for you. A lot of newer cubers, especially, think that they need more stable cubes, which is fine. But the key is that you don't want to just like go blindly off of what one person says. The best piece of advice I have is go to a competition. If you want to pick, if you're looking for like a new anything, go to a competition, and then look around for different people that have the cube that you want, because I scrambled these competitions. Every single kid has like super high quality hardware. I just go around, try them out, do a couple solves. Also test more than one cube that, like if you want a new 4x4 and you're looking at, I don't know, the new Moyu one or the new Yushin one or the Chi one, try a couple different ones of each one if you can, because different people will set them up differently, and setup and use makes a big difference. So in terms of picking a cube, that's really all there mostly is to it. It's mostly just picking, knowing what type of cube you like, and then watching reviews, and then going to competitions and trying out cubes with that in mind. Just because something works for one person doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So that's kind of the easy part of hardware. The more important part is cube setup, and like how you set up yeah, cube setup is pretty much it, and that's essentially like the most important thing out there. So for instance, I just got, this is my main 6x6. It's a Magnetic Yushin Red. I've had it for about 6 months. Really like it. This is the exact same cube. I haven't done anything to it. It just came, okay, you can't really tell on stream, but it's very stiff. It's hard to turn. The corner cutting's not as good. But it's literally the exact same puzzle. The only difference is I just pulled this one out of the box last week, and I've done about 2 solves, and this one I've done about 1,000 or 2,000. The only difference really here is use and setup. So in terms of use, use is the #1 thing that makes a cube good, in my opinion. Never underestimate doing a ton of solves on a cube. Never, in my opinion, make a final decision on a cube until you've done at least 500, okay, at least 100, on a bigger cube, at least 100 solves on it. A lot of times you can kind of stop early as you can tell kind of where the cube is going to end up going. But if a cube seems similar to another cube, definitely break it in fully before making a final decision. In terms of setup, the biggest thing I see people like not knowing how to set up a cube properly is they want to set up a cube and then just like practice with it. The way I set up my puzzles is that for 5x5 and 7x7, I'll just take off all the center caps. I'll take off all the center caps. I'll kind of tension it by feel, just like do a little bit of this. Oh, this side seems tight, this side seems loose. Tension it by feel, and then do a solve and see how it feels, and then do a solve and see how it feels, like 100 times. Like, not 100, but I'll literally do, if it's 5x5, probably an average of 50 with the caps off, and just kind of make tiny, minute adjustments every time I feel like a side's not quite even to the other sides. And then by the end of that, at the very least, your cube should be even, and then you don't have to worry about whether or not one side's tighter than the other. Also, you probably should have gotten it to exactly the tensions you want. Lastly, the last thing about hardware, I guess, is mostly lubes. So it's key that lubes can make a big difference in kind of how your cube performs. For instance, putting Traxxas like 50K or 10K in your cube will instantly make it gummy. A little bit will make it crunchy, and then more of that will make it gummy. And then other lubes like Cubicle Silk or DNM 37, they all have different properties. So DNM makes it faster, along with like Maru, most water-based lubes. Silk is more kind of for a smoother feel if you don't need more speed. And a big thing I see people making mistakes on is not knowing which lube to put in which cube. Because a lot of times if you put the wrong lube in a cube, it either takes a long time for it to wear out and you can completely switch to another lube, or you have to clean out your entire cube, which takes forever. It's really important that you don't just like kind of willy-nilly just throw things around when you're dealing with your hardware. Hardware is pretty easy to set up if you just are careful and take your time when you're doing it. So on the stream action a little bit, this new 7x7 is like brand new, and I'm gonna pretty much do a setup or tensioning how I am gonna set it up for the competition this weekend. But yeah, in general, biggest bullet points dealing with hardware: know what style, what type of cubes you like, what style fits you, and then use that as the main basis of your decision. Don't blindly listen to people. Knowing how to set up your cube, it's not a one and done sort of deal. Tensioning takes a long amount of time if you want to get it perfect, and it's certainly worth the effort. Doing an average of 50 on a cube without center caps isn't that big of a deal, and I highly recommend it. And then also, yeah, breaking in. Always break your cube in completely unless it's absolutely terrible before making a final decision. That's pretty much all there is about hardware, in my opinion. This is kind of an interesting tip for the week. This is the only tip that's going to be about hardware, essentially. I'm probably going to post a video soon about just all my main cubes and a little more in depth about what I specifically use, but you can anticipate that in the coming weeks. For Tuesday tips, the next couple weeks, my plan is to do a little bit more about mentality and how to practice before, during, and after a competition in order to have the best performance at the competition, which is obviously the end goal. And then we're going to be transferring back into the normal tips of kind of back into the advanced set of tips with more specific tips to 5, 6, and 7. So, yep.